Amherst Township Trustees called to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lynch?
Here.
Urick?
Yes.
Abraham is absent. Kish is here. We have a quorum. The January 28th, 2025 regular meeting minutes of the Amherst Township Trustees. The meeting was called to order at 7 o'clock p.m. by Trustee Urick. Pledge to the flag. Roll call. Abraham, Urick, and Kish were present. Lynch was absent. Also in attendance, M. Morosco, K. Smarsh, Pete Bossman, K. Hill, M. Lear, A. Carroll, and N. Carroll. 1-7-25, a motion by Urick, seconded by Abraham, to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 14th, 2025 as corrected. All ayes. 1-8-25, a motion by Urick and seconded by Abraham. Move to approve the financial reports and payment of items on the payment listing as presented. All ayes. 1-9-25, motion by Urick, seconded by Abraham. Move to approve that the December 2024 credit card account transaction detail has been reviewed per policy and is accepted as presented, subject to investigation. All ayes. 1-10-25, a motion by Urick, seconded by Abraham. Move to approve the amendment of 2025 temporary budget of resources and annual appropriations to account for OPWC grant funding. All ayes. Fiscal officer reported that work continues on the 2022-2023 audit and will continue this Friday. Under audience concerns, Paul Bossman brought forward a concern regarding the zoning inspector coming out to his shop with an application for a certificate of occupancy. There is no tenant, it is his shop. It's always been his shop and he does not rent it out to tenants. He just stores his tools. Trustee Urick encouraged Mr. Bossman to reach out to the zoning inspector to discuss. Under reports, ambulance, quarterly meeting of the Sandstone Joint Ambulance District on Thursday, February 13th, 2025 at the Amherst Fire Station at 11 a.m. Under roads, parks, and cemeteries, Road Superintendent Smarsh reported the weather keeping them busy this year. A couple of water main breaks and the new dump truck was taken to get the plow on January 16th. Yard waste is scheduled for grinding the third week of February. 1-11-25, a motion by Urick, seconded by Abraham, to authorize Township Administrator to take all actions necessary to apply for Lorain County Public Health 2025 Healthy Places Grant. All ayes. 1-12-25, a motion by Urick, seconded by Abraham, authorization of applications for Lorain County Stormwater Mini Grant Financial Assistance for Storm Sewer System Restoration and Reduction of Erosion and Sediment. All ayes. Under complaints, they are being handled by the designated individual, and the next regularly scheduled meeting will be Tuesday, February 11th, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the Amherst Township Hall. 1-13-25, a motion by Abraham, seconded by Urick, to adjourn at 7:34 p.m. All ayes.
Are there any changes or corrections to the January 28th meeting minutes?
I have none.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I will second.
Lynch?
Yes.
Urick?
Yes.
Okay, so then we have financials in front of you. You have the payment listing, which is pretty much boilerplate. I don't see anything in there that's out of the ordinary. Unless you have questions on anything. And our revenue to date is $27,608.46. And our expenditures are $126,213.44. The only thing I did want to mention on the payments is our real estate tax bill is being paid for the year.
Due Friday.
Yep, I'll take it with me tomorrow and deliver.
And ask for a quicker or easier service than that, right? Hey, David, did you have any questions there? I mean, I know the
No,
revenue's
no,
late,
no,
but
no,
it's
I
just
don't
the
see
beginning of
anything
the
here.
year.
I'm just looking them over now. All right. I'll make a motion to accept the financial reports as presented and pay the bills as presented.
Second.
Urick?
Yes.
Lynch?
Yes.
And the only other thing I have is that the 2022-23 audit is still going on and will be again on Friday. I'll be working with Michael here at the...
Okay. Is he going to have, as they typically done, a follow-up meeting with us, or we'll see a
I don't know.
preview?
We haven't gotten that far yet. There are so many suggestions that he needs changed, or that he's mentioned should be changed already. So from timesheets to who's approving timesheets before they get to me.
That doesn't have anything to do with LaGrange Township, does it?
I don't know, but it's, Linda can approve Morgan's, but then somebody's got to approve Linda's. Kevin approves everybody's, but somebody's got to approve Kevin's. George's has to be approved, Sam's has to be approved. And then at the end of the year for the zoning, like the zoning chair would need to approve everybody's, and they got to be better at reporting. There just were some discrepancies in meetings, minutes, not minutes, meetings and hourly, and how it's calculated. Like some of them don't carry it down. And I didn't pick one up, hours, because I was just looking at what they have in there, where if somebody would have signed off on it, they possibly could have caught that, so.
Maybe.
But he wants those timesheets changed, and so there's going to be a whole list of things, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, there's always opportunities to improve, right?
Yep.
All right, and Chris, what was the motion number there for the approval of?
Financials,
Yeah.
2225.
22, thank you.
You're welcome. And the other thing I mentioned is I will have permanent appropriations to you for the March 11th meeting.
Okay, good. There really shouldn't be a whole lot different from what we went over
No.
before in the town. Okay, anything else, Chris?
That is
All right, we'll move on. I don't see anybody here as far as public tonight, which is surprising, but move on to correspondence. Chris?
I have none.
David?
I have nothing to bring forward at this time.
Okay. Well, in the correspondence announcements, I'm just going to repeat that, just a reminder, we will have County Recorder Mike Duran at our April 8th meeting. And then we just received today, so it's handwritten on your agenda, and you've got a copy inside the packet. Lorraine County Public Health District Advisory Council will be meeting on Thursday, March 27th at 6 o'clock out at the Health Department headquarters there on Murray Ridge. Also, Lorraine County Township Association regular monthly meeting will be hosted here at Amherst Township on February 20th. I know Linda and Morgan have put together as far as the refreshments and all set up on that. Linda, I'm going to let you guys ask what type of help you need. I can't recall if you were on the email or just Morgan, but I just responded back, let me know what you need. Even if it's getting the tablecloth covers, whatever. I wasn't sure if you guys were having those delivered, ordered online, or...
We'll need help doing the tables and chairs set up.
Well, we can help setting it up, but I'm wondering even on the purchase of it, how you were planning on procuring that, because I go by Sam's Club quite a bit.
Oh, we'll take care of that. Morgan and I are going to make a trip out to Sam's Club to get like the cookie tray and stuff. Fligner's is going to deliver at 5:30 right to our
Okay.
door. So
Okay.
we won't have to do any of that. And then, of course, we'll save on plates and all the utensils and stuff because it's going to be pretty much finger foods.
Okay.
And everything will be ready.
What date
Probably-
is that?
Next
It's-
Thursday, the 20th.
February 20th. Yeah, again, that's handwritten in there too, Chris. And the last thing was, David and I were both at the OTA conference this past, actually that's it's over a week now with it.
Well,
just
it's
been
been,
last
yes,
week.
it had.
Yeah, so I don't know, David, if you want to review any key items that you might have picked up there. I know you would have attended some of the sessions and been through with the
There were some
vendors.
interesting items that some interesting items that they brought forward, and just some basic nuts and bolts, something. A few items what needs a resolution and what kind of a resolution does it need, such as
Good,
some
I
need
didn't go to
a
that
resolution majority, some need a unanimous, items like that. Also, I brought up something at the zoning commission, I'll bring it up a little bit later. There is available to townships, if the townships so choose to use it, for open space. You know, one of the items brought forth was you can actually pass a levy. Now I know that maybe that kind of blindsided you, but I don't know if we're
Right,
talking about a levy or anything right now. But there are things you can do with open space, and I wish we would look into that a little bit further.
Okay.
And particularly, at least as far as some kind of planning, as far as that goes.
You went to the
and-
because there was a workshop on that topic. Did you
Yes,
go
it
to
was.
that?
It was interesting. There were a few workshops, and one dealt with ag land, and one dealt with open space, and very interesting, very interesting. But something I would like to look at in the future. I don't have anything to bring forward specifically at this time, but something that put the idea out there, something to think about, something to roll around in your mind a little bit. And,
Well, what you might do, David, is they didn't tape the session this time, so we won't see an actual video, but they probably have by now the information available. You have to use your online account. You might want because I'm sure it seemed like a lot of the sessions, they didn't have enough handouts when I get into them, but they were supposed to provide all those online, and then it'll be easier, if you pick out the key points and perhaps you want to cover that at a second meeting in the month, and we could display it on the screen. Okay?
All right. All right. Well, I'll see what I can find out, further information. I can get into more of the planning on it, whatnot. But it's something I wish that the township would look at. All right.
You haven't seen any webinar on that topic, have you, Linda? Me neither. So I did notice you sent an email out, David, just prior to this meeting to Assistant Prosecutor Lee Prue on road right-of-way. There was a session on road right-of-ways and the township's authority and responsibility, and it showed twice. I don't know if you got to that.
No, that I didn't get to the right of way.
Let me give you the section 5571.02. That again, to write it down. Ohio Revised Code, section 5571.02 will specify the township's authority and maintenance of the road right-of-way. Obviously, we have the responsibility of maintaining it, even though technically it's county commissioners, if you read the statute, are technically responsible. And you're aware of where in the rural sections, the property owner owns the center of the road, whereas when we get in our subdivisions, they only
own the right of way.
Right, so I'm sure Lee's going to get back to you with that question.
But I think that question came up, when was it, last fall? Was it November or so? December? And it corrected itself. But the question remains, what happens in the future? Should someone leave a trailer in the right of way? What?
If it's an obstacle and it's a safety violation, who do you call to remove something like that? Any type of vehicle or license, who do you call?
Is it a vehicle? It's not a vehicle. It's not a motor vehicle.
It's required to have a license. And if there's any statute that needs to be enforced, which usually involves a penalty, who has the authority for that? Who would you call?
Or the sheriff.
Right. And so that's what you do. It's typical to what we had with Old Middle Ridge. It's the same thing. So I expect Lee's going to get back with you on that, but...
Yes, I spoke with her at the county association last month, and she gave me the email, and I wanted to get that done. I wanted to get that out to her.
ask what she knew about it. Like I said, it corrected itself, and it's not a pressing issue, but at the same time, it's something that I think we as a board could use the information in case in the future it happens again. And what are we looking at, and what are the regulations? I would think that would not be a good situation, just to drop a trailer in or along the road.
Well, if I can ask you to look into one more thing, is the utility permitting in the right-of-way, which seems to also come up with our residents. We've had all sorts of fiber optic cable, being pulled, and people wonder what's going on. We're never notified. It's going right through right-of-way. Some is ours, some is on county roads, but when they come through, they're just doing an area. And I know it was discussed about the permitting that you have there, and some of that is just to make sure they're not damaging what you currently have underground, or disrupting residents' yards. And then, you remember, I'm not going to mention the company's name, but they had a contractor, and all the complaints we had, Lyndon, how difficult it was. We found out the same thing the residents were saying. They're calling and can't get any response from people.
No, and I was on the phone 2 hours going from person to person, and nobody knew what I was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, as Clark Howard used to say, customers, no service.
Yeah, right.
Well, I just wanted to cover some things real quick here, and I'll just run down the list, because some of this, and Kevin, this first one for you, we may have the opportunity of some grant funding. It's the same thing, you got to apply. This would be through, it's actually ODOT funding, but through LTAP. And I think you were here when we got all the signs replaced in 2014. And at that time, we also invited the village of South Amherst, because I had checked with Victoria Beal, and she is still with LTAP. She wasn't down at the OTA, but the gentleman I spoke with said she does still work at LTAP, because we had told the village just the northern part of the village, that's part of the township, we could include. We didn't have the authority to include the southern part. But when they started, it was strictly based on crash history, and they determined which townships would be eligible, and pretty much if you applied, you received it, but you had to wait till that window opened. Well, they've gone through this, and it was also upgrading your signs. Not only that, you needed to improve them, because the goal was improve safety, but to meet the new retroreflectivity standards that had gone in at the time. Well, they've now opened it again, and I know the gentleman that had mentioned it from LTAP just happened to be in a different session. And I don't recall if it's the road right away or road maintenance, whatever, but he had said, oh yeah, it's open to everyone. And I said, what? And so when I went down to speak with him at his booth, he said, well, he misspoke. It's only open to those that haven't received funding since 2018. Well, that's fine by us, we were 2014. And since then, I imagine, Linda, you might have seen it through one of the OTA news breaks coming through. They actually even clarified that, so I'm sure he realized he might have just put a whole bunch of people thinking they're going to be sending in applications that aren't eligible. So they got at least that cleaned up. But we just got to look at which signs we might need. It's like we added some chevron signs and whatnot to improve safety. It would have been nice if we had known this ahead of time. We would have applied. When I spoke with him at the booth, he wasn't sure if we could include the village again. Well, I wasn't going to press that. I figured I'd talk with Victoria. I assume she's still going to manage the program as she did last time, and I don't see what would change. They're still part of the township. But it's just something to look at if it's worth it. We'd have to put together the application. You remember we had to go through, the old manual of uniform traffic control devices, but they actually had some cut sheets that were easier to use. And you just checked off which ones and how many that we needed. But it's just something to consider, because that can save us some money. And we would have been one of the early ones. We weren't the first year it was available, but we were one of the early ones. Now being more competitive, I don't know what they expect us put in there. I mean, you either need the signs or you don't need the signs. It's not something we have to do this year. I don't know what the deadline is. I didn't look through that detail. I can check it, or if you ask Linda, she can bring it up through the email that the OTA just put out. And LTAP, I'm sure, will have it on their website. But, the last time we had gone through that is up to $50,000 for sign. That includes post, hardware, the whole bit. It's just we have to install it, that type thing. The NOPEC Energized Community, that was interesting going through, and I know you'll probably report, maybe you don't have enough information yet, because we will be going through the authorization to receive the next grant, and we do have some small residual funds that we held in escrow that have to be spent this year. And that's a use it or lose it, or ask for a change in the project agreement that we had signed previously, depending upon timing on this. But if it isn't, I know you're looking at the furnace issue, but if that isn't the case, doing an energy audit of our facilities is a possibility, that we can do here, and then determine if there's additional improvements we can do here. We now, I think we're pretty good on a roof, but that's 2009, that was put on there. So 16 years, they've actually said that is an eligible expense. That would consume all the funds, but that's an eligible expense, so keep that in mind too as we go through this. We've talked sometimes about power down to the pavilions. That's an eligible expense. I tried to consider, since we had to get the truck with the upgraded diesel emissions, if that, well, it seems like that isn't. Even though they'll agree to expenditures for projects that reduce nitrous oxide going out, which, use of gas, natural gas, they don't consider the reduction in nitrous oxide emissions from a vehicle. So rolling stock, they're not covering. But just some things to keep in mind as we go through this. Predominantly we've been using it for the lighting conversions right now. But, as things come up, and I've got a list here I'm not going to go through, but, there's other ideas that I was writing down as I was sitting through the session. Linda's aware, and her and Morgan are going to be attending a webinar on this, is the OTA did negotiate the free Amazon Business Prime for all the townships. So in this case, they'll no longer have to worry about, to get the free delivery costs of meeting a certain level of expenditures. Now it doesn't matter. So any supplies people need, they can order them, comes in free. They still got to go through and sign up for this particular thing. And Linda, did Georgianne give you one of those cards? Mm-hmm. Okay. I did get extras of those too. But the webinar will explain everything. Hopefully you can get through it without difficulty. Unfortunately, during the work session, all these people got on their phones and started going on, and they got stuck or messed up, and it kind of, I was real happy when they finally stopped and said, hold it, all you people, let them finish their presentation, because everybody was, hey, I'm stuck. Why'd you start? It's the, this will actually be a newsletter article. The Ohio Treasurer, when his presentation talked about the new Ohio Employees Plus program that started in January of 2024. We'll probably put that in the newsletter just for residents that are considering purchasing new homes as their primary resident. What that is if you have a bank that's part of this, the treasurer actually deposits public funds there. That increase right now is a 3.11% rate, over and above what you might get at a participating bank or credit union. So if you've got like a 4% money market, you're earning 7.1% on your money, up to a maximum of $100,000 per account per person. So a married people could put in up to $200,000 for the purchase of a primary residence. So their thinking is they're thinking this whole thing that people owning a home is becoming unaffordable. We've talked about that Senate Select Committee that was put together, that first the bullseye was on township zoning. Well, this is what the treasurer's done to try and help people purchase a home, is they start putting money away for a down payment, whatever it's going, closing costs, that's predominantly what they're used for, and they can get a much higher rate, since you don't want to put that money in any risky investments, since you're probably going to need it real soon. And I think you can put up to $25,000 a year, but don't quote me on that. If you look at the treasurer's website for Ohio Home Buyer Plus program, you can see the details there. But Georgianne will probably give a short blurb in the newsletter and a link to that. The other one, and this they have written in the Ohio Township magazine in the past, we'll have to look at it if we ever have the need again. This is for rolling stock. And we were discussing before the meeting here, we know we've got that new fire truck coming in. I forget the timing when we first ordered it. It's $1.3 million, a 38-month lead time. We do have the funding to pay for that outright, but if we pay for it outright, it will reduce that particular fund to the point where our annual cost, we're paying out more than we're bringing in, which, you can't deficit spend too long before you either need a new levy from people or do something. Plus, we lose on the other end. Those are a good portion of the funds that Chris keeps invested right now, where she's been getting a good return on investment. You wouldn't have those funds to invest. So between whether this program, which the Ohio Treasurers, or Ohio Market Access Plus program for rolling stock, he suggested we look at that. I did not look at the details. He didn't go into the details. He just said that, you'll find this very helpful for townships. But we might look at that if that's an option to help with that particular truck, or again, as we did for the plow truck, the lease purchase. But it all depends what the details are, if there's a pro or con. That would just be the opportunity where Chris and the laddered investment she's got to maintain them and give us a more even cash flow, and just put off when you have to be asking people for a new levy, delaying that for several years. I did discuss with Chris earlier, don't know if our current financial institution that we have our Ohio Township funds with even offers this. I know Chris has indicated she's been investigating some other options. One of them that was in the vendor listing was Premier Bank. They're close. They have a brick and mortar bank here in Avon, Ohio, is their closest one. They actually matched our Ohio's rate with a sweep account. So essentially what they do by using that, you invest your funds there. Twice a month they look at Star Ohio's rate, which can change daily. Well, they'll then adjust it to match the rate. So now that gives you immediate access. First, Chris has to hit it by a certain time during the day to get the funds to transfer, so that she can pay the bills that she's got outstanding. There, she can be working any time during the day and get those funds transferred, and they will automatically sweep it versus, what Chris is working the magic over the keys to make sure she can optimize the return on our funds. They would have to work with the township to set the minimum threshold to maximize the investments. They also have, and Linda, I know you've looked at this in the past, and there's pros and cons of this, as far as we find more and more, predominantly for people coming in paying for permits, wanting to pay by credit card, which is another situation that they'll handle for residents and developers complete. but they take care of all that with the separate charge, because obviously there's a fee when you use those cards coming through, but they could handle all that, so the township gets their portion and the bank takes their portion. There was a recommendation from our risk manager in one of the sessions they had that we review our driving policies, and that was interesting to hear the people that don't have a policy or let things go. Ours is pretty shored up. We had borrowed pretty much what Otarma had out there already. There were some updates when we had to update it for the CDL, which Linda provided, and I think that might have been last year that got updated. Probably the biggest change they had on that, and I know this would seem kind of silly for you and Russ, and a little bit of Daryl, but it's you and Russ with the CDL. They actually would prefer, not mandated, but they went through, the scare stories of what's happened in other townships, is that we have an annual review, not just a policy, but actually whether it's people actually going through with driving or just doing a tabletop. And that could be as simple, Georgiana, I just saw up here on Middle Ridge, huge pothole blown up. Just as the bridge goes over, well, you see the chunks of asphalt just waiting, and you know what it is, if the plow comes through too quick, it throws it over the rail and it hits the car that's coming under Route 2 there. And I think it was on 71 a few years ago, somebody died that way because the plow was coming through too quick and throws the stuff over. And I mean, you guys know, you go over a bridge, you go slower, but it's just something we've got to decide if we include that or not. But since it's being strongly recommended, we're probably going to have to look at that on an annual basis, and maybe put together some key points. Right now the biggest complaints we hear is, knocked over mailboxes, scraped, yards, that sort of thing. I think you saw one, somebody even suggested you guys are probably looking at your cell phone when you hit it, but I don't think they realize how tough it is when you're out there at night and that snow's coming down and, going around a nice sharp curve and trying to move the snow off. Sometimes you will catch them. I always remember a former trustee in a different township joking that, because he used to plow roads too, he said, I just line up where the mailboxes are. As you're aware, we don't have mailboxes every place, but, sometimes knock a few down. But that was a suggestion we may have to improve. That was the only thing I got out of that whole thing, because as she was talking, it's like, we've got all this. But that was the one improvement that was suggested. I think Linda Georgian's already talked with you about the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and where they'll offer some free services and evaluations to come in, which might be, we went through with Otarma in the past, but it might be better to take advantage of them. I talked with Chris earlier on the investment outlook. I sat in a session with Red Tree Investment Group. Found out they handle for one of our local school districts. They strictly deal with the investment of public funds, but as they're trying to read the tea leaves right now, is they're suggesting that if your cash flow allows it, you start locking in the longer terms. And you'll almost see like a flat yield curve sitting there right now. Chris was going through some, and I think you were like 4.5 on the short end and up to 4.1 on the long end.
Opposite. 4.5 was long end.
Well, that's what you prefer if you could get, but that was with callable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, callable, they're going to call it. You won't get 4.5 in the long term. This is key, which we've got to do. We just went through last year, I think it was at the end of the year, with the Otarma insurance as to how much to have, and we decided not to include it. They actually will offer free appraisal for all township assets. So that's something we really should do so that we can make sure we're insured at the appropriate amount. I do have, as we were reviewing the Ohio capital budget, a different session and the opportunities, and there's multiple areas we can do either individually or with other local public agencies. And this, David, might be a little bit of your open space there, and this would give us time to plan, because you got 2 years. As we talked about the Golden Acre Park and trails and bridges, we talked about Lakeshore Railway and the trailhead here in Sandstone. We talked about, a joint application to get the whole Lakeshore Railway from Lorraine to Wellington. Obviously, you'd want the metro parks as part of that. We got in Nowaka. There are planning grants available, but it's something we might want to consider. And Chris, I don't recall, did you mention to us, I know you said you had the Otarma Moore grant taken care of. I don't remember. When they increased that to 1,000?
Last year or 23?
Okay. Yeah, somehow I missed that because I knew when it was 500, but that's just a quick summary. There were a lot of other sessions in there, but these are going to be some that are going to be applicable to us, both from a financial standpoint and improvement of operations. And I think the last time, did I mention the Lorraine County Public Health District Advisory Council meeting will be on Thursday, March 27th at 6 o'clock p.m. I may have mentioned it already, but it's inside your packet. Okay, so we'll move on to reports. Ambulance, David, you can still attend the meeting, but it won't be necessary because the quarterly meeting got moved. It is now Thursday, March 13th at 11 o'clock at the Amherst Fire Station. And at this point,
moved up a month.
yes, and Melissa and David have both indicated they can be there, and I'll be there with them, so we should definitely have a quorum.
So I don't have to go Thursday.
You don't have to go, exactly.
Still at 11 a.m.?
Yes, at 11 a.m. And no one's here from the sheriff. I don't see Sam for zoning. David, did you have anything on zoning?
Right now, except for that bit on open space that I brought up earlier, no.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything more to add at this time.
Well, there may be, I don't know for certain. Sam had sent out an email, and first it said March 3rd, but then he sent a correction March 4th. There may be a gentleman, Jacob Shields, he said, to give an informal presentation. I checked this because he had actually been at the township once before, and we haven't heard from him in some time. But
Jacob Shields?
Jacob Shields. This is some 31 acres he's interested in on State Route 113 on the north side. This would be east of State Route 58 for a zoning amendment and I think a housing development. I know it's a housing development, but other than that, I don't know any details other than he's supposed to be at the March 4th meeting.
There's a BZA meeting coming up too on the 26th.
Yep,
for
there's
variance.
an area variance. It pronounces it Tomte Properties.
Yes, that's on 113. Let's see, it'll be west of 58.
It'll be west of
And
58.
it's on the
It'll
south
just
side
be
of the
immediately
road.
west of that little strip shop with Farmer Boy in it.
Yes, on that same side.
With the,
Yeah, that's an area variance, Chris. And let's see.
in March or in February?
February 26th. It will be with the BZA.
Yeah, what they're looking at, what their proposal is to put up, they're actually co-joined buildings, but they'll have a firewall in between, 9,000 square feet each, so a total of 18,000 square foot under roof. The variance is because they've only got roughly 113 feet, and our zoning says they need 175. Fire prevention officer's not here. Chris, are you ready if I turn it over to Kevin? Okay, roads, parks, and cemeteries, Superintendent Smarsh.
So all regular maintenance on schedule. We've been fighting with the weather. Um, Back into full swing of pothole season. I called on the truck this afternoon. I did not receive a call back, but it should be here any minute now.
Okay. Ready to be put in service.
Yeah,
Then
definitely.
stop.
I was working with the furnace guy, and today he would have picked up a part that was wrong with the one furnace. I questioned him about the furnace that we're working on. He says, looks like it's brand new. So I really, and he doesn't think that there's really going to be any problems with these furnaces. To move on there with any talk of replacing. But
Second opinion always helps, right?
and hopefully tomorrow he will be able to get that part changed out, and we can move on from there.
Okay, good.
Is any of that under warranty?
I'm sorry?
Is any of that under warranty?
No, it's not the part, because I even questioned that, and he actually questioned it with the American Standard, with the piece that it is, and it's a plastic piece. That is what is the problem. It's overage. So the tag on both of those furnaces from '08, they would have been installed in '09,
Right.
when this had taken place. So that's why that's not under warranty. I have an estimate here for crack sealing, which we put money into the budget for this year for crack sealing. And this is to go from Ohio Road to the Amherst Township line on Middle Ridge Road. Then to pick back up on Middle Ridge Road, and it'll go from the Amherst Corporation line to Corey Road. And then from Corey Road to the Brown Hill Township line on Rice Road. That estimate from GT Contracting, same company that did Kay and Linda 3 years ago, and that estimate was $15,000.
This one is,
I'm sorry?
this one you just got?
Yeah, this estimate, yeah. I called another gentleman on it, and I told him the area, and he must have been looking above or looking at Google Maps or something, and he was familiar with the area. Rice Road is actually probably a year, maybe getting close to 2 years, a little late with the crack sealing part, and I know time flies, but in 18 when it was resurfaced. But there's enough material that'll go in for Rice Road. But the other gentleman, after we were speaking, questioned it. He's not even going to bother giving an estimate because he said there's no way he could even come close to competing with something like that. So I have another gentleman that needs to get back in touch with me to get another quote. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm moving forward with that. And it's a good chance to do that job, which will be $15,000, which I believe that's what we put away for this budget.
Amazing how tough it is just to get estimates, isn't it?
Yeah,
How much time you spend.
I know. It's nutty.
Okay.
The Barnes has been out grinding. I'm not positive. They might have got the whole pile ground today. If they didn't, it will definitely be just a short time in the morning, and it'll be all taken care of. And then we'll get scheduled up here for them to haul away, which he said he'll be right on the back door of the grinder, so.
Okay. Linda, you'll be working then with the Don Romancat then on that reimbursement, because we did
Yeah.
receive notice that that grant application was approved.
I sent the MOU back, had it signed by David and yourself. And I did send that to Don, and then once we get the bill from Barnes, then we'll send it in for reimbursement.
Okay, good. The timing worked.
Yep, that's right. That's all I have.
David, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions right now.
Okay, Township Administrator Linda Ashley.
The NOPEC NEC resolution will need to be signed tonight, and then I'll need a certified copy from you, Chris, to send it in so that we can accept that award. The NOPEC event, I received the sponsorship event $1,500 grant. I did get a notice from them that they have processed it. We should be getting it soon. I let Chris know. She'll let me know when we get it, but it should show up in our bank account within the next, I'm assuming, week or so. The MOU I already told you about, that I sent that in to Don Romankic. We're still waiting on the other one for the catch basin for Rustic Hill. Haven't heard anything on that one. I'll go to the easiest one. The census sent in a zoning paper. Wanted to know all of our new residents that we put into effect here in Amherst Township in 2024. So I gave you the sheet. So I had to break it down into how many single-family homes, what the valuation was for each, how many 2+ units, 3+ units, for like Redwood, 4, 5, 6, and 8. So we have a total valuation, I believe on that sheet was like $34 million valuation of new construction for homes in Amherst Township for 2024. That's the bigger number on the bottom.
This is what
I can
she-
give you a copy, David, I just didn't put it in your box. And we needed to do all that for the census so that they can keep accurate numbers, so that when we do have the next one come through, they'll have a better number of how many we have, and that's its own big job when it does come through. We did the last one in 2020. We started in 17, 18, and then it was in 2020.
I assume some of these are picking up, like the Redwood construction there?
Yes, all of the single-family homes are listed there. All the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 units, those are all Redwood.
Okay.
So, then
Yeah,
the
I
next,
just glanced at it since I saw that in my box, and I thought, just up here earlier today, it wasn't there.
I had done it. It took me quite a while to do the spreadsheet so I
Yeah.
could get the information for the census. And then I just thought maybe you'd want to see it just for,
Oh, yeah.
just for giggles,
Yep,
nothing
I
else.
appreciate it.
The Lorraine County Public Health District Healthy Places grant, I am not going to put in for.
Okay.
I've been gathering information for weeks now. I still don't have letters of support from the teams, the baseball team, the softball team. I did get one from the soccer team, and I don't have one from the Pee Wee Football League yet. I requested them to be given to me no later than Monday, and I don't have them. I need those to fill out the grant. It's quite entailed to fill out the grant, so we're just not even going to do it. On top of that, we don't know how much we are going to be responsible for the AEDs, the training. I've been on the phone with different townships. There's, I believe, 18 townships in Lorraine County. 6 of them are similarly situated with, or so it says in the book, with numbers. I did talk to Brownhelm. They actually only have 1,700 residents in Brownhelm Township. The 7,000 includes Vermillion.
That's what yeah.
Yeah, so he said they don't have to comply. Columbia has their own fire department that is attached to the park. They have full-time firemen at the park, in their fire department. They'll put the AED on the wall. The schools are attached there. They use the fields. The schools are complying with the training and their own AEDs, so they're pretty much exempt. Carlisle gave up their park. I have not heard from Eaton, but I do not even know that Eaton has a park for athletic fields. LaGrange, the athletic fields are owned by the village, not the township. And again, that's another one that has like 6,000 people, but that's the combination of the village and the township. Who else did I talk to?
Talk with
Amherst.
Amherst.
Yeah, there's, and let's say Amherst, Carlisle, Eaton, Columbia, I think that's it. Brown Hill, I don't know. Anyways, my mind is like crazy. I've been on the phone multiple times with Kim Arnold from Ortarma. I talked to the schools today. The AEDs don't seem to be a big problem. Everybody knows I have to put AEDs out. They're trying to secure them as best as they can with weatherproof boxes and put them, the schools are going to put them in the concession stands or on the concession stands where they have a little more watchful eyes over them. They have no idea on the training. A lot of them weren't even understanding or realizing that all the coaches had to be trained. So I did talk to a lady named Sarah today from the schools. We had a very good conversation. I did point out quite a few things, and she said, oh, that's really good. I didn't know that. These are great questions. So again, they put the House bill through in October without any input from townships, schools, whatever. It's really, we don't even know how it's going to work. So as far as the training, I talked to Kathy Perales, I think is her name, from the county prosecutor's office. She kind of feels that since it's a legislative act, that we, the municipality, the townships, whatever, are going to be responsible to make sure that everybody is trained and that we are responsible to put the AEDs out. We cannot shift the liability onto the teams. She said that's her first thought. She's looking into it a little more, but she said if she had to give an answer as of, I think Friday, I talked to her.
Kim Arnold thought we might, she would have preferred if we could, she thought that
And when I
that's the way
talked
a
to Kim-
prosecutor would.
Yeah, and I
go.
told Kim this, and she said, you know, that's where she was kind of leaning to, that because it is a legislative act mandated for the townships, we can't shift the responsibility. The prosecutors, I thought at this point, is that we rewrite the contracts for the coaches or for the teams, and that we shift all the costs to the teams. So training at this point is $95 a person. We have approximately 100 teams that are using, or 100 coaches, I'm sorry, that are using our fields. So that would be $9,500 for coaches and one assistant coach. And then the cost of the AEDs and the boxes. Might have to do that. We have to do it by the Ohio Department of Health every 2 years, but we also have to do it when we have turnover. And there's a 40% turnover on coaches. So this could get quite costly, and it could cost the teams quite a bit every year. Nobody wants to shift the cost to the teams and then have the parents have to absorb it in registration fees, but that might be where we're going to have to go.
Yeah, and this is where it also gets more difficult, though. It's only on communities, including municipalities, that have 5,000 or more residents.
Mm-hmm.
But some of those teams travel to other communities, so you don't want to absorb all the costs when these other communities. This was poorly thought out. I think it was a feel-good thing. We know it was pushed by one of the Browns players. I know, I've explained to you when I talked with our local representatives, they thought it was just the schools. It's not. I don't know how this even slipped through, because it wasn't until it was done we even found out this was happening, or we would have raised the flag before it even got this far.
Yeah.
And then to give us no time to react.
Kim and I had quite a conversation about that today, and it was, you know, the same thing as what you're saying. It's like, if the teams play 50% of the time in the city of Amherst and 50% of the time at Amherst Township, are we splitting the cost? Who's responsible to say 50% and 50%, and who's going to collect the monies?
I think would be with the league, That would be with the organization.
But we
We
have-
have to take care of our situation, and if we need a certain amount of money for training and for the AED to cover our costs, we're passing it on to them.
But what about
If
the-
they play in Amherst and they gotta do the same thing, well, then they'll have to pay twice. Because
That-
they're
yeah,
gonna have two
that's
fields,
not how
two
it works though,
AEDs.
David. But that's not how it's working. We just have to make sure they're certified. The other thing is the bookkeeping. Who's going to keep track of all these
Right.
coaches to make sure that
Right.
they're all trained? Make sure that when they're down there at the park, that I have, I say, have trained, certified coaches down there. Because if the coach is trained and the assistant and both of them are out of town on business, we got the third assistant coach coming in. Are they trained? Who's going to police this and who's going to keep all the records?
Yeah, this
And
is,
who's gonna-
David, became very, when you start getting into the detail, it sounds good on the surface, but you get into the detail and implementation.
It really blew up.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's, and then, not in the House bill, but in the Ohio Department of Health that they refer to their paperwork, it says that we also should have resuscitation kits available, which, along with the AEDs. Those have, bandages and all kinds of things in there, but they also have scissors in there, and I'm like, just what we want to do is leave a package of, with scissors out in the open for anybody to just grab, like the kids at the playground. So how do you keep that secure?
And see,
How do you make sure the batteries are still good? They didn't steal the pads, they didn't throw the AED in water. Even if we went down there once a day and checked them, there's no guarantee that within 24 hours they're still going to be functioning.
Yeah, the only thing you could do is, whether it's a third party or ourselves, is keep track of it to show that when it was last checked, that you're at least doing that due diligence. But this is still, I don't think it was well thought out.
And did I copy you on that from Catherine Corrales?
I don't
Okay.
think so.
If I didn't, I will. One of her other suggestions were that the township may have to hire somebody that can go down to the park every night for the games and be down there during the weekends, so that we would have somebody trained.
Yeah?
That was what I was told. I'll send you the email. That's just not going to work. We don't have the budget to do that. That would require more than one person.
The difficulty is, this is going to lead communities to avoid the liability to pretty much shut down their parks to any organized sports activity.
Right.
And that's not good. I mean, many of us participated in that when we were young. You know the benefits of that. And again, to come up with a feel-good thing with no practical implementation and no funding and no time to react, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Hard enough finding coaches, and then you
Right.
gotta tell them to
Right.
do this.
Or you
Yeah.
pass a high cost on to them that you have to do your own training for $100.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're all volunteers. As Linda, in researching this, found out, was it 2017, the Lindsay?
Yes, the
Act
Lindsay
was
law went
passed.
into effect.
But that one was more, be aware of it, watch some training, the whole bit. The key is here now, you have to have certification and an AED in place and know how to use it. So you're talking real first aid, CPR training, and a certificate that you took it. Now a coach is going to feel they might be picking up some liability in that. And I know how they beg for volunteer help. There's no money in this. Now, I understand it's just with that health department grant was due this Friday,
This
right?
Friday, yeah.
February 14th. It's, we might want to still look at it for next year, but I'll remember to bring it up at the health department here at their meeting and say, what's going on? Because the mayors will be there too, several of them. And they've got larger communities. I don't know what their plan is there. I know like Elyria owns their parks where they have major sporting events. North Ridgeville, major sporting events, big parks. Avon, what are they doing? they have to comply too. And I told you when I first saw this and started asking some council people that I happened to run into at the college, they weren't even aware of it, not even being discussed. So I don't know if they're not
Amherst
getting
City,
the communication or just.
I don't, a lot of people weren't aware when I talked to them, and if they were aware of it, they had not read the bill, so they don't know what's all in it.
Right.
I was told by one community that they were going to just train the road crew. And I said, oh, are the road crew
They go to
there
the
on the
events?
nights and weekends? Do they work all, and they said, no. And I said, well, how is that gonna help? Because that's not gonna have a staff member there. But they weren't aware that the coaches need to be trained.
And I sent you that for one of the manufacturers, how they're using it now in the marketing,
are.
putting out the bill and you buy their equipment. There was one of the suppliers, and it was comical. Unfortunately, Kim was already gone, and I wasn't going to go to the other Otarma people. But right across from them, what are they selling? AEDs, boxes, resuscitation equipment, first aid. I asked them about it, and they're aware of it, and they're happy
Of
it's
course they
there. For several $1,000s, if you get the upgraded box, it's all sealed, so you don't have to worry about insects getting in there. You can get them heated, cooled. You can have it linked to your phone. When the person opens it up, it takes their photo, sends it to your phone, so you know somebody's accessed it, when they accessed it, and you got a picture of them. I said, well, do you provide facial recognition software too? Because just because
Right.
I got a picture of somebody, am I going to put it out on social media? Hey, anyone know who this is? Because they thought that would prevent vandalism and abuse. Well, it might discourage it some, but it's not going to prevent it. Because I said, well, can't we put a lock on that the coach had? Well, they're opposed to lock. They say that will defeat the purpose of quick access to the AED equipment. Like, well, it's
And that's where we are.
okay.
Well, one thing that hasn't come up, what about emergency, first responders and their response time?
What is the
That's
response time?
one consideration, I think, why you haven't seen it this pushed before is if something happens, you assume you can get an ambulance or a first responder there in a reasonable amount of time. And it doesn't always work out, but at the same time,
AEDs are good.
that's what the assumption is.
In some instances, if you've got, if it's a rhythm problem or whatever, an AED is good. If somebody actually expires, it's good because it would shock the heart back into a rhythm immediately rather than waiting 5 minutes for the first responders to come.
What if somebody passes out and somebody thinks they're dead and they're not, and then you put an AED on them? How do you know?
The AEDs that we have actually look at the rhythm, and they will not allow you to shock somebody if they've got a normal rhythm of their heart. It will talk you through it, and it analyzes the rhythm and everything. But those cost more, too, just so you know. Because ours is, it talks. It will talk you through, press shock and do whatever.
Press the pad on.
Mm-hmm, yeah, you put the pad on, and then it analyzes everything, and then it will tell you.
Look at the population of Oberlin, but they have all those ball fields and they have all those tournaments, but their population is saying that they wouldn't have to.
Yeah, if they're under 5,000, they wouldn't have to.
And they're
They
bringing
have
in
all those
thousands.
tournaments and all those teams.
Years ago, my son their soccer was down there. They play on
Mhm.
Oakland fields too, and, when they go down and play the teams down there.
So
Well-
we are working on it. I mean, I've made a lot of phone calls, spent a lot of time doing all this, talking with Kim. I just talked to her today. She was going to talk to Kyle Brooks. She was hoping to talk to him today. If not, she was going to tomorrow.
Yeah, because he had
Yeah.
indicated that the information, when I talked with her, because when I first talked with the conference, she hadn't reached him. Then ran into her later, she says, he claims information's being put out there, and she told him not the information people need. I told her, I said, Kim, the only thing that came through was after House Bill 47, they then made a small minor change in House Bill 315, which all that did was say, well, it's only required when there's an organized activity going on. Well, we were assuming that to begin with. That didn't help us at all. So, yeah, she's aware of it. She's had multiple townships get a hold of her. They tend to be the larger townships.
Yeah, she's not real happy with it either, so.
Well, we'll see if the prosecutor gives you some update. I will ask at the health department, since, you know, the Department of Health was brought into the middle of this to put together the model for it. But we'll have to see what Kim also says to avoid our liability and risk. I guess the reality is this is a very, very low probability of occurrence for the age level of participants that we're talking about. As a matter of fact, to my knowledge, we haven't had this happen in our township in all the time I've been here. And I can tell you through my life, through all sporting activities, the only time I ever saw a heart condition with a parent sitting in the stands. That was it. And then fortunately, I didn't have to get involved. I had the training, but there were nurses right there and they went into action immediately. But I never seen it in a participant. I've seen broken bones. I've seen people literally knocked out that, you know, colliding in heads. But the only heart condition one time was a parent that was there to observe. No AEDs obviously were available then, but you know,
And
fortunately
that's
the
why
right
you need the
people.
two
So
sets of hands.
well, Linda, let's just stay on it. I will bring it up at the health department to see what they're doing. And again, expecting that several municipalities will be there that have to comply and see what they say. I mean, you know, Lorraine's got some nice, you know, fields also. And all of our kids played there, you know, because again, you travel around. You don't just play in your community. You play all the teams in the area.
Right.
You know, and sometimes that's the way friendships develop between people. Okay, you did, is there anything else? Linda brought up the NOPEC Energized Community Grant. You have in your packet a prepared resolution. So I'm going to make the motion authorizing all actions necessary to accept the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council 2025 Energized Community Grant. I'm not going to read through it, but it gives Linda the authority to sign documents and upload this. And Chris, as she mentioned, she will need a certified copy of this tonight. So that'll be my motion.
I will second.
Lynch?
Yes.
Euring?
Yes.
And the number on that, Chris? 23. Okay. I think we can move through pretty quick on this. We've already talked about the waste grinding, and Chris, are you aware then that we were approved for that grant, correct? Okay, so that's $7,500 will offset that. And Linda, did you say for the catch basin to leverage OPWC funds, you did turn that in?
I did, yes.
Okay.
We've not heard anything yet on it.
Okay. There's nothing really there on the complaints for any update. I know, David, you had discussed earlier on the street lighting because there's some that have come in through the website, and you've actually got that taken care of, right? Contacting Ohio Edison?
Yeah, as I go along, I'm contacting them.
All right, is there any other business, David?
Just under solid waste, I did receive a notice, not a notice, an email from Thomas Patrick, and he stated that David Blevins was reassigned to a different department, and that Thomas will be taking over as Director of Solid Waste.
Okay.
I wanted to let you know that.
All right, thank you.
So, new director there. But other than that, I don't have anything else to bring.
Neil, I did forget one thing. We have shredding scheduled for April 26th at the dumpster days.
Okay, did you contact Solid Waste?
Yes,
Good.
yep, and they're coming out. They'll have a truck. And we'll set them up across the street like we did last time. And they'll be here from 9 to noon.
And they're coming, that's in October? one?
April.
The April one?
Mhm.
Sure if Georgianne will, she have time? Georgianne, will you be able to get that in the newsletter before April? Yeah. Okay. All right. And Linda, you'll take care of notifying through any social media, and then
Yep.
people can bounce it around.
Yep, and it'll be closer to the date. If we do it too far
Yeah.
out, then people forget.
Right, right, yeah. You get buried in all the minutia. All right, then our next regular meeting will be at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, February 25th. I don't have any need for an executive session unless there's,
I have nothing.
okay. Then I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
Lynch?
Yes.
Euring?
Yes.